For the pleasure of the Lordship, Shri Radha Ballabha, Shri Gaurnitai, Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra, Shri Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. Sankirtan score report for Friday, 20th of May. Books distributed: Matsya Mataji, 1 small, 2 Mahabig for 4.25 book points. And Hemant Bosami Prabhu, 9 small, 2 medium, 1 big, 5 Mahabig for 14.25 book points. Preaching score: Radhe Chaiba 84 guests for 1011 Lakshmi points. Gopal's 200 guests for 2411 Lakshmi points. And CrossFit's 316 guests for 2661 Lakshmi points. Lakshmi liberated Matsya Mataji 26, Hemant Bosami Prabhu 158, Bhakti Shastri course 200, member services 521, and retreat Purijan Prabhu 750. That gives the daily total of 1655 and the weekly total of 18,762 Lakshmi points. Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevalova Kati Shadma. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevalova Kati Shadma. Vando mui savadana mate. Vando mui savadana mate. Jahara prasade vai e bhavatoreya jai. Jahara prasade vai e bhavatoreya jai. Krishna prapti hoy jahar hoy te. Krishna prapti hoy jahar hoy te. Prabhupada. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chetete Koriha Akya. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chetete Koriha Akya. Karuna Korihamone Aruna Korihamone Asa Prabhupada Shri Guru Charane Arati Yeshayu Tamagati Shri Guru Charane Arati Yeshayu Tamagati Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asa Prabhupada Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asa Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asa Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asa Chakudan dilo jai jane jane Prabhu se Dibogan ride prokasito Dibogan ride prokasito Prema bhakti jaha hoite abhida vinasajate Prema bhakti jaha hoite abhida vinasajate Vedegai jara jarito Vedegai jara jarito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu Lokena Lokera Jivana Lokena Lokera Jivana Ah Prabhu Korodaya Deho more Bhaktivedanta Prabhu Korodaya Deho more Bhaktivedanta Vedas Gushuti Bhuvana Gushuti Bhuvana Srila Prabhupada Bhakti Tapavana Srila Prabhupada Bhakti Tapavana Srila Prabhupada Bhaktita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Vatita Pavana Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada ki Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Sarasati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavade Paschataresha Karine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gauranga. Hey, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hey, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga,
Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Hey, Nitai Gauranga, Gaura Hari,
Gaura,
Gaura, Gaura, Gaura Hari,
Gaura, Gaura Hare,
Gaura, Gaura, Gaura Hari,
Gaura, Gaura Hare,
Gaura, Gaura, Gaura Hari,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Chalo, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Ram Hare, Ram Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare
Ram Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Hare. Hey! Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Gaura Hare, Gaura Hare, Jai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hey, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hey. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Gaura, 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 Hare. Gaura, 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 Hare. Gaura, 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 Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare.
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ram Ram Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo, Haribo, Haribo.
Krishna Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Haribo,
Krishna Gaura,
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol.
Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada,
Prabhupada,
Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada.
Jaya Shri Prabhupada,
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya
Prabhupada,
Prabhupada, Jaya
Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Prabhupada,
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya
Prabhupada,
Jaya
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Hari Hari.
Hare Ram Sankirtan ki jai, Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra ki jai. Just a little bit more.
Just a little bit more.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Nitai, go! Come on, wake up, come on. Haribo! 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 Nitai, Gora, Haribo! एकदम ऊपर हरिबो ऊपर all the way down there haribo Nitai Gora haribo haribo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Hey, go! Gora, 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 Hare. Ita, go! Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. Ita, go! Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. I gotta go in the kitchen. Shila Prabhupada Guru Puja ki jai. Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Shabbat Mahamsa. Hare for His divine grace. Shila Shri Bhaktivedanta. Swami Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Nidila Jai Shabbat. Paramahamsa Parimahachikacha. His divine grace. Shila Bhaktivedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Sila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gokapina Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Mathura Ram ki jai. Mayapur Navadip Dham ki jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi ki jai. Ganga Mai Jamuna Mai ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Sankirtan Yajna ki jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Chanting the holy names every town, village, all over the world, all over the universe ki jai. Transcendental book distribution ki jai. Prashadam distribution ki jai. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam set distribution ki jai. Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Ballabhaji ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai ki jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Srila Prabhupada save the whole world ki jai. Save the whole world at whose feet all masters sit. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Guru Puja ki jai. Ga Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
I bow down to the Lord with great honor.
He is my Lord, birth after birth. From an ecstatic frame emanates, by ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing with his character. Our spiritual master, the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, the Lord of master of the devotees. Oh, Master, be merciful unto us. Give us a share at Lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over three world. We take shelter below the tree. Save the whole world, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Guru Puja ki jai. All the devotees ki jai. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam class ki jai. Go Premanande.
Ooh, this is really clunky pair of katos. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Labha Giri Bharadhari Yashoda Nandana Bhaja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Bhaja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Banachari Jamuna Tera Banachari Rabanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Asto Sadastada Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Kantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. What's that number there? What's the number on the board?
Small.
Yeah. What's the number?
It's
22. 22. Very good. Yep. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 9, The Appearance of the Demon Vritrasura. Text number 22. Avismitam tam paripurnakamam Svenaiva labhena samam prashantam. Vino pasarapatya param hi balishaha. Svalingulena titatarti sindhum. Avismitam tam paripurna kamam. Svenaiva labhena samam pashantam. Bino pasarpatya param hi balishaha. Svalangulena titatarti sindhum. Avasmitam tam paripurna kamam. Svenaiva labhena samam prasantam. Bino pasarpatya param hi balishaha. Svalangulena titatarti sindhum. Vino pasapatya param hi balashaha. Svalangulena titatarti sindhum. Svanaiva labhena samam prasantam. Vino pasapatya param hi balishaha. Svalangulena titatarti sindhum. Avismitam, who is never struck with wonder. Tam, him. Paripurna kamam, who is fully satisfied. Svena, by his own. Eva, indeed. Labhena, achievements. Samam, equipoised. prasantam, very steady, bina, without, upasarpati, approaches, aparam, another, he, indeed, balishaha, a fool, sva, of a dog, langulena, by the tail, atitarti, wants to cross, sindhum, the sea, free from all material conceptions of existence and never wonder-struck by anything, the Lord is always jubilant and fully satisfied by his own spiritual perfection. He has no material designations, and therefore he is steady and unattached. That Supreme Personality of Godhead is the only shelter of everyone. Anyone desiring to be protected by others is certainly a great fool who desires to cross the sea by holding the tail of a dog. Purport: a dog can swim in the water, but if a dog dives in the ocean and someone wants to cross the ocean by holding the dog's tail, he is certainly fool number one. A dog cannot cross the ocean, nor can a person cross the ocean by catching a dog's tail. Similarly, one who desires to cross the ocean of nescience should not seek the shelter of any demigod or anyone else, but the fearless shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 58, therefore says, Samasrita ye padapalava plavam mahat padam punya yasho marare bhavam buddhi vatsapadam param padam 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 yadvipadam natesham. The Lord's lotus feet are an indestructible boat, and if one takes shelter of that boat, he can easily cross the ocean of nescience. Consequently, there are no dangers for a devotee, although he lives within this material world, which is full of dangers at every step. One should seek the shelter of the all-powerful instead of trying to be protected by one's own concocted ideas. Ooh. It's okay. So, Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmaye Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahiyam Dadati Svapadantikam Mukkam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayati Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinatavinam. Balishaha, a fool, Svalangulena Atitarti Sindhum. A great fool who desires to cross the sea by holding the tail of a dog. As opposed to taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And that's let's have a look at this. It's very interesting, actually. In this verse, in the translation, it's mentioned here that Supreme Personality of Godhead is the only shelter of everyone. But it's interesting, if you look at the word for word, that's not actually mentioned. Interesting. But of course, this is the meaning of these prayers. Now, these are prayers being offered by Indra, isn't it? Isn't that what's going on here? Yes, the demigods headed by Indra, and of course, this is the point of the verse, that there really is no other shelter than Krishna. It's not stated actually in the word for word, it's actually not mentioned, but Prabhupada's put it in the translation so that we clearly understand what the point of mentioning trying to cross over the ocean by hanging onto the tail of a dog is referring to. Right? That's obviously silly. Right? And of course, it's alluding to the ocean of material existence. That's the ocean that's being referred to, and Prabhupada then quotes in the purport the famous verse, Samasrita ye padapalava plavam mahatpadam punya yasho marare, that the Lord's lotus feet are an indestructible boat. So, hanging onto the tail of a dog, really to do anything, is not going to achieve anything at all. And the juxtaposition here is of between the infallible Supreme Person and any of the persons that exist in the material world, even the most powerful, which includes the demigods, who are very powerful and potent servants, representatives of the Lord. But even though they're very powerful, empowered, and have potencies, they're endowed with different potencies given by the Lord himself, still they're limited. The demigods are limited. They're limited and temporary. Even the planets of the demigods, limited and temporary. Everything within the material creation is limited and temporary. But just because we see Krishna and the various incarnations of the Lord appearing in the material world doesn't mean that they're also limited and temporary. But rather, the notion or the idea of an avatar is one who descends from the spiritual realm, but even though while appearing in the material world doesn't mean they're part of the material world. This is one of the, Krishna says, avajananti mam mudha. The foolish don't know me because they see me as being part of the material world or in the material world, and so therefore they think that I'm part of it, like the other limited and temporary persons. But Krishna is, whilst, and that's his potency, his power, if you like, and he can appear anywhere and go anywhere at his discretion, and not be limited by the. And so, and that's why he is the only person worthy of taking shelter of, because he's not limited by the confines of material existence, which is, birth, death, old age and disease. Although that's Krishna's trick, when he disappears and he leaves behind a so-called material form, it bewilders the minds of the materialists. Very, very difficult to understand. Janma kama chame divyam evam yo viti tattvataha. It's very difficult to understand the nature of God's appearance and disappearance, because it looks very often like the same activities of the materialistic persons. And so easy to be bewildered and to then doubt. Ooh, is Krishna the Supreme? Right? Easy to doubt. What's that? Brahma, everybody, almost. Yes. So, how do we... Now, here's something. Krishna is generally very, very far away. Very far away. And unapproachable. Right? Very difficult to approach. What's that verse? What's the, from the Brahma Samhita? What's that? Next. Okay, that is a verse from the Brahma Samhita, but not the verse that I'm thinking of. Vedeshu Dulabam. What's the first line of that verse? Advaitam Achyutam Anadira Ananta Rupam. What's the next line? Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha. Vedeshu Dulabam Adulabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So, it mentions that it's difficult, very difficult to approach Krishna, even through the Vedas, right? Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa Savairaham eva vedyo vedanta krid veda vid eva chaham. Right? By all of the Vedas I am to be known. Right? The purpose of the but the Vedas are such a vast body of information. And so much information. And, this one's mentioned as Bhagavan, that one is mentioned as Bhagavan, that we should worship this one, that we should worship that one. And so a study of the Vedas, sometimes you just become confused. Right? Very easily. Which is why we need to study the Vedic literature with a guide, with a guru. One needs a teacher, a guru, to make sense of all of the Vedas. And why the Gaudiya Vaishnavas generally just focus on Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Because the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, and the Vedanta Sutra is the conclusion of all of the Vedic literature. But even a study of the Vedanta is not easy, because it's so compressed, it's so concise, that it's also easy to misunderstand, because it's too sutra-like, which means, compressed information. And of course, yes, and that's why the Bhagavatam is so important. But even the Bhagavatam, you can be confused, right? And why we need the connection through the spiritual master, through the parampara. Right? And this is how we can approach Krishna, even though he's very far away. He's brought closer by the parampara system. Right? Prabhupada gives the example that the spiritual master representing the parampara is like, if I take my glasses off and I look at you and all I see is very blurry faces, right? I'd have to stand a long way away because I've got long-sightedness, right? So I can drive my car easily and read signs and everything without my glasses because I'm long-sighted. But anything up close is impossible. But when I put my glasses on, then all of a sudden everything is in perspective, right? So the spiritual master, Prabhupada describes, like the via medium through which we can then view something or appreciate something that ordinarily would be very, very far away and unapproachable. The spiritual master brings Krishna close to the disciple. Of course, but the disciple has to be pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. It has to have the qualifications of a disciple. Right? It's a process. And by hearing from the spiritual master, by inquiry, submissive inquiry, not challenging inquiry, but submissive inquiry, and just inquiring all around. To pariprashna means questioning all of the details, or anything of doubt, really, that needs clarification. So in this way, and then service, rendering service, sevaya, doing service, then this process, when one's connected to the parampara, brings Krishna very close to the devotee. Such that by practicing in that way, then the devotee feels like he has a personal relationship with Krishna. So it's a mystical process that by serving the spiritual master, one's actually developing one's relationship with Krishna, but also with the Guru, with the spiritual, learning how to serve, and also how to inquire, and also how to study the Shastra, or what Shastra to study and how to study. And in that way, then, that qualifies us to take shelter of Krishna's instructions, right? And these are the lotus feet of Krishna, his instructions with which we can take shelter and get release from the material energy get released from this ocean of nescience. So we don't completely write off the demigods, right? We're still respectful to the demigods. And it's said that when we worship the spiritual master, he's the sum total of the demigods, right? Why do we respect the demigods? Because just as the spiritual master is the servant of Krishna, so similarly also the demigods are the servants of Krishna. So we do respect them and honour and respect their service. But if we want release from the material, from the ocean of nescience, then we take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. And the method for us doing that is submission to the spiritual master. So that's why Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Devotion, the first of the 64 items is Ado Guru Padasraya. First one has to take shelter of a guru. Huh? And of course in ISKCON, our first shelter is Srila Prabhupada, our Founder-Acharya. He's the source of all of our instruction, if you like. And he provides us with the prism by which we study the Bhagavad Gita, study the Bhagavatam, study the Chaitanya Charitamrita, study the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or the Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada says with those 4 books, you study those books, that's all you need to be Krishna conscious and to be philosophically astute to defeat any argument. That's all we need to really concentrate on, are those four books. And all of the other things that we do, we learn them through the agency of the spiritual master or through his representative sometimes. And in that way then we get a firm understanding of how to cross over this. And so, you know, there's that Bhavam buddhi vatsapadam param padam. So the material energy is described as being a vast ocean that's very difficult to cross. But if we take advantage of this process, this parampara process, take advantage and take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, and especially that means pretty much within ISKCON, that means somebody who's following our Founder-Acharya. Prabhupada's like our Adi Guru in one sense. Because the Adi Guru is Balaram, but the Founder-Acharya is the source of our process and the instructions and how we apply it. Then the challenges of crossing over the ocean of material existence shrink. Vatsapadam, right, to the amount of water that exists in a calf's hoofprint, which is easily crossed over, right? It's easy to cross over the amount of water that's contained within the impression of a calf's hoofprint. So, taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet means taking shelter of Krishna's representative, because the spiritual master is pretty much that mercy incarnation of the Lord. And of course, hearing the Bhagavatam, also hearing the Bhagavad Gita, worshipping the deity. And for us, the holy name, chanting Hare Krishna. This is also a manifestation of Krishna's mercy, if you like. Chanting Hare Krishna, our japa and our sankirtan. And the sankirtan is meant to benefit others as well as ourselves. Lord Chaitanya asked Haridas Thakur, how are we going to save the animals? Those who are not in a human form, how are we going to save them? And Haridas Thakur said, by chanting, by sankirtan. They'll hear the whole, and animals means even the dvipada pashu, right? There's plenty of them. You know what a dvipada pashu is? There's a two-legged animal. Wasn't so long ago that we were also dvipada pashu. So it refers to us as well. So how do we benefit those people? One of Krishna's qualities and one of Radharani's qualities is a very soft heart. Very soft heart. And feel for others. Well, we have the capacity, almost all living entities, have the capacity to enjoy vicariously. Which means that when a mother sees her child fall over and scrape his knee, she feels the pain and wants to cry as much as the child is crying. Right? Soft-hearted. So Krishna is also soft-hearted. When he sees the suffering of others, he feels hurt by that. Of course, here it mentions that Krishna is completely, paripurna kamam svenaiva labhena samam prasantam. Right? He is avishmitam, never struck with wonder. Trying to work out something. What's going on here? Krishna's not like that. Which is interesting. And he's satisfied with his own achievements. Creates the whole of the material, boom, just here comes the material creation. Boom, he desires it, boom, there it is. Of course, through a process. Samam, equipoised, equal. Prasantam, very steady. So, but yet, when he sees the sufferings of others, he feels that. Very soft-hearted. Krishna is very soft-hearted. That's why it's interesting in the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami says that cultivation of knowledge and austerities, performance of austerities can be obstacles to bhakti. And the reason is because it makes your heart hard. Our heart can become hard. Whereas the heart of a devotee and Krishna's heart is very, very soft. Very soft. Certainly in regards to, dealing with others. And of course, being brought up in some cultures, we naturally inherit hard-hearted qualities. Or even just as a result of going to school, you're always getting picked on and people making jokes, and it's almost the culture of bullying. It's a culture of bullying, right? And you become habituated to being bullied, and People become hard-hearted, or there's a lot of competition in society. Get money, get a position, control others, and and be insensitive. I tell you, it reminds me of a story because, interesting. Just reminded me. One of my first memories was going to the circus, and I wouldn't have been 5. I would have been 4, or maybe hadn't turned 4. And as part of one of the performances, they had a dachshund. The German. Well, I think I always thought they were German sausage dog, because we're obviously not into sausages, not into sausage dogs either, for that matter. But anyway, they had the dog, and then they put it into what looked like a machine, right, with a handle on it. And then they cranked the handle, and then they pulled a string of sausages out of the box. And I was so shocked. I was very young, and I was so shocked that they killed the dog. Of course, it was just a trick, right? They pull the sausage dog out the next night, and he's okay. But I didn't know that. Right? So for me, they turned the dog into sausages, and I was, what? Wasn't entertaining for me at all. I was shocked. And which shows the innocence, the innocence, I was very young, but the innocence and the soft-hearted nature of, whereas, everybody else, ha, 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 it's funny. But it's not funny at all, at least for a 3.5-year-old kid, first time to the circus. So we become habituated to being, to callousness. But Krishna's not like that. Krishna, even though he's self-satisfied and fully, equipoised and steady, was it samam prasantam, right? Is mentioned here. Still, when he sees the suffering of others, then he's inclined, he wants to help. He wants to bring them from, bring us from the ocean of material existence where we're trying to get out by hanging out of the tail of a dog. Right? This is our efforts to, get out of the material world or to ameliorate things, make things good. Here, it's the Indra says, this is silly. This is as good as hanging onto the tail of a dog and hoping you're going to cross over the ocean of material existence. It's not going to work. So the system is that Krishna brings, through the parampara, through the authorized devotees, and why, satovrite, following in the footsteps of the devotees, of the previous acharyas, is the methodology. This is how Krishna takes us out of the material world. And why here, even though it's not in the word for word, it's not actually in the verse, but Prabhupada says, interesting, that Supreme Personality of Godhead is the only shelter of everyone. Very interesting. Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions on any of these points? Hare Krishna. 4 books, yes. Bhagavad Gita, yeah. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, yeah. Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then Nectar of Devotion. or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Yeah. It's an amazing book. Rupa Goswami is a genius. And it took him some years to write the Nectar of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It took 10 years or so. And basically, when Rupa Goswami met Lord Chaitanya in Varanasi, then Lord Chaitanya gave Rupa Goswami the outline of what became later the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And Prabhupada translated that fairly early in the in Prabhupada's development of ISKCON. And so it's a summary study. It wasn't done in the way that he normally did the way he did the Gita and the Bhagavatam. But still, it's amazing. It was the first book that I read, or at least read a paragraph of. I was at a friend's place and I pulled out and I thought, oh, what's this about? Right? And I opened it up randomly and I read about how Krishna was playing in the forest with his cowhead boyfriends, right? And Krishna's, and I'm thinking, wow, how do these people know who God is and what he does? Because I was still in ignorance pretty much. But I was reading different books, spiritual, so quasi-spiritual books. So I thought I knew everything. And then I read about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, playing with his friends. And I thought, whoa, closed the book up, put it back in the shelf. I wasn't ready for it at that point. It was just like mind-blowing. Because, at that stage I was pretty much contaminated by, and why Lord Chaitanya says, don't associate with and don't listen to impersonalist philosophers and Mayavadis, because they'll contaminate you, contaminate the heart. So when I read Prabhupada's, I was looking at, and I was thinking, how can anybody say? Because the Christian ethos or a lot of the world's religious traditions don't have a fixed conception of who God is. They don't have it.
What about Islam?
Huh?
Islam.
I'm not familiar enough, but as I understand it, they don't know what he looks like. They don't know what his name is. They don't know where he lives. And they don't know what he's doing. Whereas, we've got Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's playing in the forest with his boyfriends, herding cows, right? Like, whoa! I was just blown out by that. How do they know this? What to speak of having the audacity to say it to others, right? Because nobody knows. How can you know God? He's so far away and so, beyond, so not material, fully spiritual. How can he be a boy playing with his friends and looking after cows? That's the mentality. Hard to understand.
What should be our answer?
What's our what?
What should be our answer to your question?
What's our answer? What's the answer?
The answer for this kind of question is
What's the answer? Oh, well, the answer is an answer. There's many answers, but an answer is, if God is supreme, right, he can do anything, right? He can do anything. So he can be both formless, right, all-pervading within everything, and at the same time have a form as well, right? Because a lot of, there are those who say, oh, God doesn't have form, because they think of the material form and that's limiting. But what's very difficult to understand is this form which is unlimited, right? And if you say God doesn't have form, that means you're limiting him. And you can't limit God. So he must be able to be formless and have form at the same time. And be a person.
Can we explain through the spider?
At the
Spider.
The spider?
Yeah.
What about
He creates the universe. He creates the web.
He creates the web,
And then he
pulls it back in again. Yeah, that's right. He can do that. So yeah, many, and there are other answers that can be given as to, you know, understanding the form of God and the act. So that's why, you know, Lila, Guna Rupa Nam Nam, the qualities, the form, the names, these are difficult to approach and understand. And again, that's why we have the parampara system, the knowledge of the Shastra, but filtered, if you like, or not filtered might not be the right word, the correct perspective, right, on the Shastra is given by the parampara and by the spiritual master. Right? And that's how it's passed down. Yep. Yes. And the Nectar of Devotion, or the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is really important for us because it contains pretty much the essence of what we do. And how that process or those engagements, those activities gradually bring us to the point of realizing our spiritual identity and our relationship with Krishna. Brings us very close to Krishna, but it also reveals, you know, like a flower buds and then blooms until it's fully blossomed. So our consciousness or awareness is described to be like a flower bud, and it needs to blossom and bloom. The process of bhakti, as described by Rupa Goswami, and as taught by Srila Prabhupada, and which is in the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, that's succinctly described in the Nectar of Devotion. And with symptoms, you know, with what are the characteristics as we make progress. Really important book, because then what that means is we're able to analyse ourselves and also analyse others. Although most of the time we should be analysing ourselves. What Prabhupada said to Rohini Kumar, he said, the rules and regulations are for you, not for others. Right? So in other words, you know, we should be following, don't worry about what other people are doing. And even if they're only doing a little thing, we should be going, Jai Hari Bol. Right? Again, that hard-hearted tendency is to think, you know, I'm the best, and what's wrong with all of you other guys? Why don't you get your act together? The devotees and the rest all are Mayavadis. I didn't hear that last bit. Mayavadis. Oh, as opposed to the Mayavadis. Yeah, okay.
So, how about this people who follow the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, and what should be our moves when we go to the temples or meet any devotees of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam or any other sort?
Well, okay. So the question is, what should be the mood? Well, the question is, if we're meant to avoid the association of impersonalists or Mayavadis, you know, what should be our mood in dealing with devotees, for example, from the Sri Sampradaya, right? Well, The first thing is we should respect everybody, right? That's the first. That's a measure of a civilized person, right? Trinadapi sunichena tororeva sahishnina amanadina manadina kitani asada Hare. So this is the first more or less instruction of Lord Chaitanya. Not the first, but certainly a very important instruction. And a symptom of advancement is humility and respect everybody. Be respectful to everybody, right? So that's the first. Of course, by the same token, we also are not silly. Right? That's why we need to even be able to determine advancement, amongst the devotees, right? So, and asat sangachar, we're encouraged. First principle is to avoid those who are attached to the impermanent, right? So, on the one hand, we're careful about our association, right? Sangat sanjayate kama. If you associate with the drunks in the park, what's going to happen? Huh? You'll become a drunk in the park too. But if you associate with the sadhus, what will happen? If you associate with the Hare Krishnas, what happens? Yes, but what happens? What happened when you started associating with the Hare Krishnas, Priti? She became a Hare Krishna. Yeah, that's what happens. You have to be careful about your association. So, now, Prabhupada teaches us, Bhaktivedanta Thakur teaches us, Lord Chaitanya taught that there are 4 sampradayas that are bona fide. And the Sri Sampradaya is one of them, right? And in fact, Lord Chaitanya took elements, even Bhaktivedanta Thakur took elements of the Sri philosophy in what we now study as a Dasamula Tattva, which coming from Ramanujacharya is actually 9 prameyas or 9 truths, right? But Bhaktivedanta Thakur adjusted the focus, right? Adjusted the perspective. Didn't really change them, but put more emphasis on rasa, right? Which again comes back to this softness of heart. So the Sri Sampradaya we respect, right? Because of the potency of Ramanuja. It's said that when Ramanuja came to a place, the Mayavadis would run away. They didn't want to get into an argument with him because he would just smash them, right? So we're respectful to those sampradayas that faithfully carry the processes by which one can come close to Krishna. Yep. How's that sound? Yep. We have quite a few friends who are followers of the Sri tradition. Now, Lord Chaitanya actually brought the 4 sampradayas together. And so when we become followers of ISKCON and of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we're automatically following those 4 sampradayas. So we suggest be respectful but join ISKCON. Right? Because Lord Chaitanya is the Yuga avatar, and for different reasons, numerous reasons, we encourage everyone, even those members of the Sri Sampradaya, we encourage them, come and join the dynamic, the preferred option for Kali Yuga. But not everybody wants to become a Hare Krishna, do they? So we respect everybody's choices, we have to. Right? And certainly those who are members of these authentic, authorized traditions.
I have a question about the past time of Krishna and then his passing away, leaving the body here.
Yeah.
So how do you explain this kind of events?
We'd have to look at that section of the Bhagavatam. It's generally not a palatable topic that devotees discuss very often, right? Because for obvious reasons. But if you look at that chapter of the Bhagavatam, that section of the Bhagavatam, the Acharyas thoroughly describe why the Lord does what he does and what the purpose is, And I haven't studied it recently, so memory's a bit rusty, but one of it is to bewilder the atheists who think, look, see, he left a body behind, so he's just a materialistic person. Whereas the devotee is able to see the transcendental nature of the Lord's appearance and disappearance and all the characteristics and qualities that make him make him obviously not of the material realm. So that's one argument, and there's a few others given why the Lord leaves behind an apparently material body. And there are others. Yeah. 11th is it? I think 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, you'll find that there's those pastimes. Very interesting, actually. How the Yadu dynasty, being eternal associates of Krishna, couldn't be removed by any material means, right? But and this is why the Bhagavatam is so intriguing, because it has its own internal logic, and how all of these leelas and pastimes all connect, right, to make a bigger picture, and then it all starts to make sense. But the sons of, was it the sons of Krishna or the grandsons? I think it was the sons, were feeling a bit frivolous. And they dressed up Samba, I think it was. Yeah, Samba, like a pregnant lady. Right? But it was he was wearing a sari, and he had they bundled up some cloth and made it look like he was pregnant. And then they wanted to test the rishis, and I think it was Narada Muni and some other sage. And so they playfully went, and insultingly really went to Narada Muni and said, "Oh sage, what will this young girl give birth to? A boy or a girl?" Something like that. And of course Narada Muni, the rishis were offended, because this was just some upstart kid being foolish. So the rishis said, "She will give birth to the destroyer of your dynasty." And they were like, and then the Samba then found himself carrying a lump of iron, right? So they were, this is the destruction of our family, right here. So they thought, what do we do? How do we get? They wanted to get rid of it, obviously. So then they spoke to, who did they speak to? Ugrasena or what? And he suggested, okay, file it up, break it up into little pieces and throw it in the ocean, which is what they did. Right? But then those filings came into the shore and were absorbed in the reeds that were growing there, right? And there was one little bit left over. I think they threw that in and that was eaten by a fish or something, wasn't it? Picked up by somebody else. Anyway, ended up so the Yadavas went to that particular beach, had a party, drank too much wine, and got into a fight with each other and beat each other to death with those reeds, because they had become like clubs with the iron. And somehow, and I've forgotten the details, the lump of iron became the tip of the arrow that was shot by the hunter who shot Krishna in the heel, right? And it was only a superficial wound anyway, right? But that was... So anyway, there's all these... interesting, very interesting story. That even though Krishna was shot, it was not a death blow by any means, right? But he disappeared, left. As part of that pastime, right? Accepting the curse of Narada Muni, or if it was Narada Muni, the rishis. Was it Narada Muni? No. Somebody else. Yeah. Narada Muni usually has a part to play in a lot of things, but not this one. Yep. So, and that's interesting, isn't it? Because you see this sometimes in the Bhagavatam. There's a curse being given unfairly or, circumstantially. And, Krishna doesn't have to accept any curse, but he accepts it for the purpose of Leela, for the purpose of the pastimes, to move on. And ultimately for the benefit of everybody. Right? Krishna has other service to do. He's got some other Leela to go. He's got to, in 5,000 years, he's going to be Lord Chaitanya.
So I have a question.
Another one.
Yeah, this kind of explanation or this kind of events that
Yes.
in many scriptures.
Many.
Yeah, and how we can swallow to the modern educated people. They are always science or this thing. So can we?
By our behaviour. We can affect people by our good example. And by our philosophical understanding of what's happening.
So that if I go to the next part of philosophical understanding, then how we can explain these events to them or not?
Don't. No, don't. Have you heard, you don't cast pearls before swine. Have you heard that as a Christian saying?
Otherwise they'll trample them into the ground and attack you.
Yeah, they'll trample them into the dirt. So the pearls, the essence of some of our teachings, that's why it says, that eighth offence in chanting Hare Krishna, 8th or 9th, to instruct the faithless in the glories of chanting Hare Krishna. So we don't instruct those who are not inquisitive and faithful. We don't instruct them on some of these intimate... for us it's like, God, this is so obvious. What's wrong with you idiots? Why don't you just accept it? But we give it to them and they say, a lot of rubbish. So we don't do that because they don't have accessibility, right? And so therefore we have to be on our best behaviour, right? And know how to present our philosophy and philosophical conclusions in such a way that it connects to their level of understanding. and has an impact there at that point.
How we can make that
How? By practice and example. Yeah. Yeah. Takes time. Takes time to learn how to do that. You can see that with Srila Prabhupada. Very, very expert. He could read a situation, he could read a person, and so he could, there's that famous story in Mumbai. He was at a Pandal program and one fellow was challenging and Prabhupada was shouting at him. And one of the other members of the audience says, Swamiji, what was it? Shanti, be peaceful. Brahma Bhuta Prashanatma na sochati na kankshati. And Prabhupada said, that's for very advanced people. But Prabhupada was, he could really speak very strongly in some circumstances, but then also be very mild and depending on the situation. So that requires a great deal of experience. It takes time.
I see that Prabhupada used rascal word many times. Rascals.
Yes, you're a rascal. I'm happy to accept I'm a rascal. But in India, maybe the word rascal has a different meaning. I was called a rascal all the time by my mum. In fact, I believed it, so that's what I grew up to be. But yes, Prabhupada could be heavy, and people liked it. Now, we can't do that necessarily, but it takes time, experience, and practice. We need to practice bhakti. We need to practice and practice and practice and develop humility. Because, humility is really one of the first qualities that exemplifies learning. Humility. What happens with learning in many people, most people, is they get proud. I know so much. Step aside. Right? But real learning is to know your infinitesimal nature. Right? That's why, again, Rupa Goswami says, jnana and vairagya can make the heart hard. Because we're always learning and analysing, dissecting arguments so that we can fight with others and defeat them. Right? But that's secondary, actually, to bhakti. Yes, bhakti will give rise to learning through which you can defeat others, but just being able to defeat others is not the purpose of bhakti. The purpose of bhakti is to love Krishna. Huh? And so soft-heartedness is where the devotee is strong, powerful. That's humility. Right? Yeah. Okay, let's be soft-hearted and take prasadam. Distribute prasadam and take prasadam. Grantra Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thanks for class.
You're welcome, John. Thanks for coming.
Krishna can also not be killed because, like in Mahabharata...
Krishna can be also not what?
No, Krishna cannot be killed because like other people will say that how could see he's a materialistic person, he got killed. But actually he can't get killed because in the Mahabharata he was not getting killed. They were trying to kill him, but...
He was the cause of the victory of the Pandavas. Yes, so that's a contradiction.
Yeah.
So it's like, hang on a second. He's the source of power for everybody, but then he got shot by this little... he wasn't even shot. He got, a graze on his ankle, or on his heel, right? And then he... Yeah, But see, you have to have a devotional vision to see that. Otherwise, I say, this is contradictory. What's going on here?
I think he wanted to respect the curse.
Of the sages. Yeah, very often. Yes, that's the answer.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Anybody?